Hey, this is JRDs from thereligionteacher.com. We're going to talk in this video about heaven versus hell. I think we often get this misunderstanding of what heaven and hell actually are based on the artwork and things that we see in popular culture. We see often images of clouds and angels floating around in happiness. And then hell, we see pictures of just fire all the time, of burning people that are burning in fire. But I think those images misrepresent what that experience of hell and heaven actually are according to the faith. Heaven, just looking at the word itself, means sky. So that makes sense. Why do those images come out? Well, the word heaven comes from the words that mean sky. Jesus ascended up into heaven. We talk about heaven being up and then hell being down often. Kind of a rudimentary understanding of what those two experiences of the afterlife are. Hell comes from a root word that means to hide. And if you think about this, Adam and Eve, what did they do after that first sin in the book of Genesis? They hid themselves. They hid from God. And that's a good explanation, I think, of what hell really is, and also explains in a lot of ways what heaven is. We get sidetracked by the images when really, what is heaven? The way that the church often describes it is the beatific vision. And that word essentially means the beatific, the good, happy vision. We get to see God face to face. In heaven, we are united with God. We're in communion or union with God and the saints. That unity is experienced because we love God. Hell, those who are sentenced to hell, are there because they did not love God. That love means we are destined for that union with God. If we don't love God, then we're separated from God. Heaven, there's communion. In hell, there is separation. And what causes that separation from God? It's sin, particularly mortal sin. That hell is an experience of complete separation from God. Mortal sin is a free choice of a grave sin that is fully unrepented. If you're going to hell, it's because you have put yourself in a state of separation from God through mortal sin. Whereas here, sanctifying grace is what gives us that unity with God. That if we accept the grace of Jesus Christ, that from his death and resurrection, that love unites us with God. We're able to see God face to face. Hell is nothing more than that experience of mortal sin, experience of separation from God. So heaven is an experience of grace. Hell is this experience of sin, and thinking of sin not just as breaking a rule, but sin is separating us from God. People are in heaven are loving God, they're loving their neighbor. People that are destined for hell are separating themselves out of pride from God. They're hurting their relationship with their neighbors. So it's not an easy thing to think about, but we know for sure that Jesus even talks about heaven, he talks about hell. And what is that experience like? Heaven is unity with God and the saints. Hell is separation. It's loneliness. It's being completely alone because of our own pride. You have to be unrepentant. Here, you're accepting God's love. Here, you're rejecting God's love. So it's not so much a scary thing to think about. People that are in heaven are accepting God's grace, accepting God's love. People that are in hell reject it. So when you think about what happens to us after we die, as Christians, we believe we are either going to heaven or we're going to hell. Those who are in hell, going to hell, are in a state of mortal sin. They're separated from God. Those who are going to heaven are united with God. You're accepting of God's love and God's grace and God's mercy. So what do we do today in order to know for sure where we're going? Is we love God and we love our neighbors. That's what we were told to do in the gospel. It's the simplest way of thinking about being a disciple, being on our path towards heaven, is the greatest commandments. Love God and love your neighbor. Love as Jesus loved. That's the path towards heaven. Go make disciples. God bless.